Hello everybody, welcome back to my movie review series. You know how we do it, another day, another movie review. Today we'll be discussing Odd Thomas. You know how we do it, give you the breakdown, logistics, setting, overall impressions and grade, other rating systems, stuff like that. Past that, once I give you my grade, if you've not seen the movie and would like to, based or not based on my recommendation, you're going to want to shut off the video because there will be spoiler alerts. We'll be discussing the plot synopsis and character development in similar movies and major themes. It's rated PG-13, came out in 2013. It's a thriller/mystery, an hour and 40 minutes runtime. You can watch it for free on Tubi. I watched it for free on Amazon Prime free trial, which I thought that was going to be done tomorrow, but I have it until like the 20th or something. But I will, again, cannot afford anything. But all watch options, yeah, Tubi or Pluto for free, or Amazon membership. But we had, here's the description. A clairvoyant cook, Anton Yelchin, joins forces with his sweetheart, Addison Timlin, and the town sheriff, William Dafoe, to prevent an unknown catastrophe that may be linked to a weird stranger. And so obviously this is a sci-fi. Yeah, it says thriller mystery, but this is heavily science, not fiction. This is fantasy. So definitely. But the box, the reason I was laughing because there's a budget of $27 million and it did $1.3 million at the box office. Some sort of director Steven Sommers is really happy about the return on that one. 75% liked it on Google, 45% liked it on TV Guide, 38% on Rotten Tomatoes, 6.8. We'll round that up to 6.9 out of 10 on IMDb. Google says it's strange, imaginative, and biting. It definitely grew strange. Again, fantasy that doesn't. Again, I watch movies for any sort of nuance or interesting fact in a writing script. Fantasy is not a genre I watch all that often, but I definitely can have ones I liked. I'm sure. Again, like I don't know. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I can tell you I've really liked a fantasy movie before. But again, just looking for some sort of novelty in the writing and the characterization. So overall, it was kind of like upbeat, playful, definitely fantasy, upbeat, pretty like witty or just like fun. It's pretty much just like a clairvoyant dude, which I thought clairvoyant meant like you could like move stuff when we were doing the Looper videos. I called clairvoyancy. I don't know what the other word would be, but just like living through the chick that was stuck in the house and can move stuff. Not Matilda. Not that one. But whatever, I've done so many, I forget which movie I'm talking about. The one with the dude stops at the snow cone guy. What the fuck was that called? That's gonna drive me crazy. Gosh, it does not matter. But the Freaks movie is the one I'm thinking of. Called that clairvoyancy when she's like moving stuff. But his clairvoyancy is talking to dead people. So that's what this guy can do. He sees, and dead people can't talk, but he can see the dead people. And just kind of like he's trying to prevent a disaster from coming. So overall, it didn't really do anything for me. I can see it be entertaining for some people. I like that it was kind of like upbeat and not like supposed to be like super serious in the tonality of the dialogue and of the music and of just the background feel. So I'll give it C+. Didn't do anything for me, but could be entertaining. Definitely wasn't off-putting. But yeah, you have to like fantasy and just some out there stuff. But overall, it's just kind of more of like a love story to me with decent banter. So overall, didn't do much for me, C+. So if you've not seen the movie and would like to, you're going to shut off the video. So the movie opens up and it's pretty, 40% narrated by Odd Thomas himself. You get some background. His name is literally Odd Thomas. His name is supposed to be Todd Thomas, but he's not sure if it was intentional or not. But for whatever reason, on his birth certificate, his name is actually Odd Thomas. And so he's dating a girl, they're madly in love, her name is Stormy. Odd Thomas works with a girl named Viola, who's also rather attractive. Odd Thomas, again, has this ability, gets a background on his mom that she got locked up in a loony bin, and that Odd Thomas thought his mom probably had some of the same kind of clairvoyance capabilities he has. And so the movie starts off by you get a little bit of background, and then he sees this little blonde-haired girl. So he kind of follows her down the stairs, and then he goes out and sees some dude that either knows him or they're friendly with. They know each other. The guy yells out, "What's up, Thomas?" He's like, "Hey man, how's it going?" He kind of takes the keys out of the car, and then he's like, starts talking about, he knows that there's, he's got blood from this girl that he killed, like literally in his pocket right now. So the guy gets out of his car and tries to run away from Odd Thomas. Odd Thomas starts chasing after him, chases him through a pool party, tackles him, there's some struggle, they break a bunch of the homeowner's stuff, and then the chief police comes and arrests him. The chief is Chief Porter, who's played by William Dafoe. So there's some decent big names in here, but I'm not sure if I'm going to match up all the characters exactly correctly. But William Dafoe is aware of Odd Thomas's capabilities. Odd Thomas is, it's mostly a secret. His girlfriend Stormy knows, the chief knows, and besides that, no one else knows because he's trying to not get locked up in the loony bin himself. And so that happens. He solves the first case, and Chief Porter's like, I'll pull some strings to make, keep your secrets safe. So then you get to the even more science or fantasy aspect as he sees these things. I think he calls them bogards, which there's these giant invisible monster things that don't really interact with the real world, and he can see them, but nobody else can. They don't do anything. Like the dead people can't interact with the world at all. But these bogards come around when brutal death is around to feed off the dark energy, and so he's working at his store. He works at a restaurant to keep low key, and he serves the Chief Porter. He's flirting with his girlfriend Stormy, and he feeds this guy or serves this guy called Fungus Bob, and that's just the nickname they give him. His name's Robert Robertson, classic Bob or Bob Robertson. But regardless, he sees all of these bogards following this guy, and he has to try to figure out, what is this coming tragedy, because there's so many of them. And there's another quick scene with some other person who is clairvoyant, but it's just literally one cut scene. And some dude, Odd Thomas, is talking with this guy's like, I saw the bogards, I see the bogards too, and I finally flicked one off. And then right as he does that, I guess the bogards can kind of interact. It kind of goes into a person, and then Odd Thomas is like, you can't look at him or acknowledge him or we'll kill you. And so the dead people can't interact with the world, the bogards kind of can through living people. And right as he says that, the dude gets hit by a truck. And so it's just one quick scene, but regardless, Odd Thomas is now trying to find Fungus Bob to figure out what's going to go on. And Chief Porter, Odd Thomas is tells Chief to look into this guy, and the Chief knows about his capacity, and he's been right every time since. And so you start looking into Fungus Bob. Odd Thomas tries to find him again, and he has some other capability called magnetic something. He can basically just, if he wants to find somebody, he can just walk around long enough and find somebody. And so he's doing that. He finds him at Stormy's place of work, which is an ice cream store inside of a mall. And Fungus Bob buys 2 big tubs of ice cream. And so Odd Thomas kind of follows him to his house. And once Fungus Bob leaves his house, Odd Thomas breaks in and starts looking around at stuff, basically to see if there's what's coming or what's happening. So he finds this dude has a bunch of files. He's really interested in a bunch of stuff. Odd Thomas has a phone call with Stormy. She's like, look in the fridge. There's got to be dead body parts or something. And he basically opens up this big dark hole for these bogards to come through. He finds a calendar with a file on it. Fungus Bob has on himself, and there's a day ripped out of the calendar, and it's May 15th. And so now Odd Thomas kind of has an idea of the day time, what day that this big evil event is going to occur. And so he keeps trying to investigate them. He goes to a cookout at the chief's house. He meets this other blonde chick that had rather nice boobies. I'm seeing, Lizette probably. I don't know if the chick was blonde in real life. But Lizette kind of flirts with Odd Thomas a little bit, but again, him and Stormy's relationship is solid throughout. They're madly in love, but They had a tarot card when they were 10, and they've been together since. And so he kind of leaves there, and he goes back to find Bob. And I think I'm not sure if he finds Bob at Bob's house or if he goes back to his house and somebody had planted Bob there. Regardless, Bob is now dead. Actually, first, Odd Thomas and Stormy go on a date. They go into this church, and then they're gonna have a date just like on top of the church, and they see Fungus Bob charging at them. And so they kind of run away from Fungus Bob. He kind of like destroys this section of the church, and Thomas reports it to Chief Porter, and he tells them to go home. And so he takes Stormy to, they have separate places, but they do have separate places because they discuss moving in together. Thomas takes Stormy home and then goes back out to try to figure out what happened, and then kind of realizes that Fungus Bob has already been dead, but he goes back to his place now and finds Bob dead. And so he realizes that at the church he was the only one that sees it. And so there's some decent characterizations where it's like the plot, you're not really sure, like you're not just, some things sneak up on you in the plot. Like I wasn't, thinking that Odd Thomas was the only one seeing Fungus Bob at the church scene. And so he just says, it was just the ghost or something, the poltergeist that wrecked the church or something. And so he says that the dead people can't interact with the real world, but they kind of like move stuff and wreck stuff too. So Odd Thomas hasn't figured out his capacity all of that well. But regardless, he goes and he comes to the conclusion that, he finds Fungus Bob dead in his place, dumps the body off the roof, puts it in a trunk, and puts it in this abandoned facility that's been bought out by several different places, and just locks him in this tube place. And so there's an Ozzie Boone, is kind of like a minor character played by Patton Oswalt, which is a pretty well-known actor. And Ozzie Boone had given Odd Thomas this a metal plate. He had he has his visions and dreams or whatever. He has this dream about a bullet going through his heart. At the same time, Viola has the same dream where they see a bunch of people getting shot that are wearing bowling employee outfits. And so he goes into this place where he thinks they don't have the right uniforms, and he goes back in there, and they've changed their uniforms. And so now he's kind of, he doesn't know if the shooting's going to take place at the bowling alley, or it's just going to be this group of people in their bowling outfits. And so that happens, and then pretty quickly after that, again, I don't really know, but he has some, get the phone call, but he realizes quickly that once he finds Bob dead, that he has the plan, whatever this big catastrophic event has, is Bob has at least two partners. So right around this time, Chief Porter gets shot twice in the chest, or a couple times in the chest, and goes to the hospital under circumstances. And then Odd Thomas puts it together, goes back and looks at Fungus Bob's chest, and it says POD, Prince of Darkness is an acronym. And he had also seen it at the cookout with Estelle, who again, she is also dead now. She got mauled by dogs, or it's made to look like she was mauled by dogs. But basically what happens is Odd Thomas learns that some of these people on the police force are actually planning out this big catastrophic event. So Odd Thomas is now trying to find these people or stop them. Again, they find the Lizette character dead, and they're going to basically, the 15th comes. And so Odd Thomas is it's going to happen in this big area. He tells his girlfriend not to go to work, stay home, and she's like, no, I'm going to go to work or whatever. And he also tells Viola, who has two daughters, to stay home or stay away from busy places or bowling alleys or whatever. And so Odd Thomas is going back to the mall to try to find these people, and he realizes that he sees the bowling people sitting at a cafe in the food court of the mall. And so he realizes that this big event is going to occur in the mall. And so he finds the two security guards. He goes to find the first cop, who's the bad guy, sees the two security guards shot dead, and the bad guy's still in the security room. And right when he walks out, it looks like he kills him with a baseball bat. So regardless, he lifts up the mask and he sees it's a different guy, and so not the person with the POD on his arm that he expected. So then he realizes, after thinking there was two helpers, then there was two total, then three, and then four total. And so that's really the biggest development, is just like these people on the police force that are actually working together with Fungus Bob. And so regardless, that's what happens. And then he goes to try to find the next guy. He sees, he finds this big, he has a vision of like a van or something. So he finds this big van. Well, actually, at first, they're an actual shooting. It turns out to be a mass shooting, which major theme that's happening every 5 seconds. But so he has he takes a gun off the one guy with 4 bullets in it, and this other guy's spraying stuff. He shoots the windows so these Bogart things can come in. So clearly they're aware of him as well. And Odd Thomas is able to take him out, shoot the guy after he sprays up the whole place, including where Stormy was behind the counter. And so he's not sure if Stormy is alive or not, and then she stands up from behind the counter and looks okay. And so then after that, that's when he realizes that still the guy under that mask wasn't the complete picture. And so he has to find this truck, and he goes down to the basement, finds this truck, sees there's a ton of bombs in there. And the guy that planted it, who originally saw what the POD is walking away, turns around and opens fires on him. And he gets in the truck, hot wires, and starts driving away. The guy's kind of holding on to the side of the truck, tries to shoot at Odd Thomas, and literally just grazes the top of his skin on his head. And Odd Thomas is able to drive it into this ditch. And the guy is holding onto the door, he pulls himself up into the truck, and Thomas had jumped out and abandoned the truck. And then a big explosion. He kind of channels the explosiveness through just this abandoned concrete corridor thing to limit the damage. And so after that, him and Stormy are kind of laid up in this room for a little bit. At which point, Chief Porter, his wife or girlfriend, and Viola come to help him or talk to him. And it's it's time to move on. And at which point, Odd Thomas and the narration's I always kind of suspected it, but I didn't want to admit it to myself. That when Stormy had stood up from behind the counter, she was actually dead. And so it's not graphic, it's PG-13, but there's no blood or guts or not much of it at all. And so it's not like when he shoots up the mall, it's not like you see a bunch of big graphic scene or anything. And so Stormy has died, and Odd Thomas had just not admitted to himself. So it's kind of another one of the big kind of reveals. And so again, it really just turned out to be a fantasy detective and crime kind of show, which is at least different than just normal crime, which I've watched way too much of. And so again, it didn't really do much for me, but it could be entertaining to some people. There was some decent banter, and just the upbeatness of the characterizations I thought was decent. But it really didn't do much for me. Fantasy movie with some crime drama in it. And so, in similar movie major themes, no, not really. So thank you for watching yet another movie review, Odd Thomas, and I will see you on the next one if there is a next one.